In 2034, the virtual reality game called God Wars was revealed to the world. It quickly became popular, and while some players participate in the game to level up, others play it to support their lives. One of these people was a mediocre mage named Zhang Yanwu, who spent a lot of money just so he could get that class. And like a recovering gacha player, it's a decision that he came to heavily regret. His class wasn't much, but it still helped him support his brother and niece. One day, he got electrocuted while he was on his way home, but thankfully, he wasn't seriously hurt. However, the incident somehow altered his biometric data, which resulted in him getting locked out of his God Wars account. And so, Yan was forced to make a new character, but in an inexplicable turn of events, he somehow obtained the highly rare and ultra-OP Archmage class. In a world ruled by cold, hard cash, Yanwu managed to be something by being lucky. With a new lease on his game life, the Archmage promises not to waste the chance to provide more money for his family and change his life. As Yanwu walks around the town of Beginning, he finds a puppy and a legendary quest, which is the highest ranking quest that exists in God Wars. Yanwu has only heard rumors about the legendary quest, and he can't believe that he's discovered it. Okay, calm down, Yanwu. He wonders if he'll be able to do it, and at the same time, he knows that the quest will enable him to pay for that month's living expenses. Then, Yanwu checks the quest details and learns that the puppy is sick and has lost its way. Yanwu is supposed to bring the elixir of vitality to the puppy. And of course, he sees the quest's hidden information or condition. First condition, over 30 friendliness with NPC Hayden. Second condition, completion of NPC Hayden's manufacturing quest, Elixir of Vitality. It's Yanwu's first time seeing Hayden's quest, so he assumes it's a hidden quest that occurs when certain conditions are met. If it wasn't for his ability to see hidden information, Yanwu would have probably ignored the puppy, just like the other players did. The Archmage then vows to complete the quest, but first, he has to go to the Explorer Guild since they manage most of the quests around that area. Sad to say, even though Yanwu hates getting involved with those guys, there's nothing he can do about it. Although various quests existed in God Wars, their generation rates decreased as the rank became higher. At the same time, there was a limited number of times they could be cleared, and NPCs had a limited number of quests they could give a day. As a result, players received them in advance to trade them for in-game currency, and some would even camp in front of the NPCs to monopolize them. The Explorer Guild. It was impossible to manage all the NPCs inside the game, but some players refused to just watch and stay still as they ran amok. Eventually, they headed to the town of Beginning, where beginners could get help adapting to the game. Of course, players could never return once they left, which meant that veterans who would pick a fight didn't exist. Slowly, the Explorer Guild established their base in the town of Beginning and expanded their influence while also increasing their services in many ways. They pretended to be nice to beginners by giving free items and helping them with hunting, all just to enhance their image. Soon, people started supporting the Explorer Guild and evaluated them positively. With everything that was happening, the developers of the game declared they wouldn't interfere with in-game matters, and just like that, the Explorer Guild became an official business. As Yanwu stands outside the Explorer Guild base, he can't help but express how much he didn't want to create a secondary character because of them. Then, inside, an Explorer Guild member informs him that there are 3 main types of courses. The first one is called the Basic Course, where Yanwu can receive a quest without any waiting time. Next is the Advanced Course, where the Archmage will receive the quest along with item borrowing services. The third one is the Luxury Course, where Yanwu will receive help until the end of the quest, in a party formed with a helper from the Explorer Guild. The Explorer Guild members also tells Yanwu that he can pay with in-game currency, such as gold and items, in addition to dollars, yen, and euros. Finally, the guy asks Yanwu what course he'd like to order, and the Archmage nonchalantly replies that he'll have the Basic Course. There was a time when some people tried scamming the Explorer Guild, but they just ended up getting dragged away to the mining fields and forced to pay off their debts. Oh, in the mining fields, players can mine resources needed for item production. Unfortunately, because the Explorer Guild provided services for the powerful and rich in the real world, those who wanted to escape them were left with no choice but to give up on their characters. They were the parasites that settled in God Wars. Moments later, the Explorer Guild member gives Yanwu his quest list and confirmation card, instructing him to take the list to its respective location. So, Yanwu quickly goes there and talks to some men about Hayden's quest, saying he needs to confirm its contents and learns he must collect 10 goblin leathers. Yanwu's surprised to see so much information on NPC Hayden's linked quest, and among all of them, he sees a hidden mission that will lead to a legendary quest.
Hidden quest, 30 goblin leathers.
Of course, Yanwu is the only one who can see it, so one of the men wonders what exactly he's looking at. So, without alerting the men, Yanwu plans to figure out how to get the information on the remaining linked quest. But first, Yanwu must start with the easy quest. Good thinking, Yanwu. Afterward, Yanwu levels up from killing goblins. Since Yanwu's stats are high, he's even managed to defeat the goblins even without magic, and only by using a stone. Then, it isn't long before the god Yanwu serves notices him and gives him an opportunity. For those who don't have enough funds to buy a skill card, the time for gacha has returned. It's a free opportunity every time a character reaches a certain level, but Yanwu has never gotten a good skill from it. Sure enough, 90 cards out of 100 are all normal ones. Is luck innate after all? Yanwu asks himself, feeling bad because there isn't even a single unique rank. Yanwu then acquires the Fireball skill, before deciding to grab the last remaining hidden quest. Once Yanwu finds the man with the scar he was talking to earlier, the guy gets impressed that he's already finished, and realizes he's quite skilled. But of course, Yanwu denies this, and even adds that he almost died trying to kill one goblin. Wow. And the Oscar goes to... Anyway, Yanwu approaches the other man, the older one, to claim his rewards. While he's doing that, the guy with the scar guesses that Yanwu bought his quest items from somewhere because he finished quickly. He also thinks that Yanwu will one day become a patron of the Explorer Guild. On the other hand, the old man exclaims as he finds the 30 goblin leathers that Yanwu collected. He praises Yanwu for being a skilled player, and also asks him to bring him the goblin's resentment that only the minority of the goblins have. Shocked, Yanwu makes it clear he's not interested in this new quest, and explains how he was forced to buy 30 goblin leathers because he couldn't find anyone who was only selling 10 at the time. Yanwu is annoyed that some things were not explained to him properly when the quest was sold to him, worried about how the men will compensate him for the 20 goblin leathers. The guy with the scar apologizes to Yanwu, but he clarifies that the player is the one who made a mistake and that he can't pay him. Also, the guy informs Yanwu that according to the contract, customers will be held responsible if they don't follow the information provided for them. As if things will change, Yanwu asks the man with the scar if that means he has to resolve the new quest on his own. When the man confirms this, a disappointed Yanwu leaves and complains about the wasted goblin leathers. Meanwhile, the man with the scar is relieved that he's resolved the issue and didn't get into trouble with the guildmaster. Unknown to him, Yanwu was just acting all along, just so he could get the information on the remaining linked quest. Well done, Yanwu. Well done. With nothing stopping him now, Yanwu leaves to obtain the goblin's resentment and returns later to give it to the old man. In exchange, Yanwu receives the elixir of vitality. With no time to waste, Yanwu goes back to where he left the puppy and gives the elixir of vitality to it. Yanwu can only hope to be rewarded with a skill card, wishing he'd finally be able to turn his life around. After a few seconds, the system lets Yanwu know that the puppy or the wolf that has lost its name will now serve him as its master. At the same time, Yanwu achieves the title, Master of the Divine Beast. Sadly, a divine beast is unexchangeable, which means there will be no rags to riches story for Yanwu. Although he's upset, Yanwu has no other choice but to take the puppy and hope it has great stats. Then, the system asks Yanwu to give the puppy a name, so the player calls it Lucky. With that, the nameless puppy gains a new life along with the new name. But Yanwu's heartbeat suddenly increases when he sees a bright light, which initiates a forced logout. When Yanwu wakes up in the capsule cafe where he plays the game, he ignores his friend, Yukju, and another guy as he heads for the door. Seeing that Yanwu isn't in the mood, Yukju explains to his other buddy that he's been like that since his mage account got banned. The two continue talking about Yanwu's problem, but the player pays them no mind and thinks about his puppy, Fenrir. As it turns out, the cute little puppy is none other than Fenrir, the strongest divine beast in God Wars that can't be rivaled in close combat. Yanwu can't believe that he was able to get Fenrir after becoming an archmage, knowing that it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance that will never happen again. Of course, Yanwu's aware that things are just starting to get better for him, but his train of thought is interrupted by a call from his niece Yerin. Yanwu cheerfully answers his phone and tells Yerin he'll buy some chicken before he goes home, only to be alarmed when the girl starts crying. Later, Yanwu goes to the hospital and comforts Yerin, who is looking at her unconscious father in bed through the glass window. a doctor approaches Yanwu and asks if he's Taewoo's guardian, saying the patient's blood pressure dropped because his heart's functions were weakened momentarily. Thankfully, it's nothing too serious for now, but what worries the doctor is Taewoo's pacemaker. The doctor informs Yanwu that Taewoo needs to get his pacemaker changed periodically and go through rehabilitation, but because of their financial problem, the brothers haven't had the chance yet to consult a cardiologist. That night, while waiting in the corridor with his sleeping niece, Yanwu ponders the importance of money. It always comes down to money, doesn't it? Since Yanwu already has Fenrir, there's no reason for him to hesitate anymore. He plans to sell all the information he can for money and collect valuable items too. But first, he must level up the Archmage he just got. When Yanwu plays the game again, he first heads to the beginner's hunting ground. The other players take notice of the puppy Lucky, because honestly, who wouldn't? I mean, look at that good boy, bouncing around like a little potato. Of course, they have no idea that the puppy is actually Fenrir, while the other players admire Lucky. Yanwu thinks about the two things he got after completing the legendary quest to heal his puppy. First, Yanwu doesn't need to look for a party since he has a companion that will aggravate the monsters. Basically, Yanwu can just play solo. Then, once he reaches the level that he aims for, he can finally leave the town of beginning. Sure, hunting will become even more difficult, but it'll be worth it because the reward will get better as well. Second, Yanwu obtained a skill card from the War Dragon, who was an Archmage's apostle. So, Yanwu tries the random card gacha again and receives a unique rank skill card. Surprisingly, Yanwu gets telekinesis, which is an exclusive skill for telekinetic mages. Yanwu is aware they are rare and known to use a force that can't be seen in order to move objects in the air in any way. Also, in battles, telekinesis is useful when it comes to sabotaging the opposition's movements. Even among the mage-class jobs, only telekinetic mages can learn the skill. However, that is a limitation that has no effect on archmages, who can acquire all magic. Things have been working out well for Yanwu, and he can't help but wonder if Lucky brought him all his luck. Soon, Yanwu starts hunting again and goes to the Goblin Forest, where Lucky viciously attacks those despicable creatures. Lucky still looks cute though. Meanwhile, Yanwu uses Fireball to destroy the goblins. After the fight, Yanwu can't believe that the hunt went smoothly, and Lucky seems to agree with him. Then, he decides to head deeper into the forest, but he first makes sure that his little ball of luck is okay, and teaches it how to sit and do a handshake. Moments later, Yanwu encounters a boss monster raid, and the system shows that there's only 1 hour before the Goblin Champion appears. A boss monster raid is incomparable to defeating field monsters. It is considered the flower of God Wars, where players can get unimaginable rewards. But of course, boss monster raids are extremely difficult, and only top rankers can participate in them. A boss monster raid is often compared to a star in the sky, because anyone can see it, but only the selected few can reach it. Yanwu is aware that he still has a long way to go to become a ranker, so he just chooses to report the raid to the community and get some snacks for Yerin. But before he submits the report, Yanwu suddenly wonders if he should just defeat the boss monster instead. Nobody's around the area, and Lucky has already defeated the other lowly monsters. So, is it wrong for him to be greedy just this once? Although Yanwu has been choosing safe routes lately, there's still no guarantee that his life will become better. Yanwu is already tired of handing over these opportunities to others, but not this time. With his family in his mind, Yanwu decides to face the boss monster alone. With Lucky. Since Yanwu has seen raid videos of the Goblin Champion many times, he's already familiar with its behavior patterns. Yanwu has never tried a raid solo, but let's not forget that he has Lucky. So, Yanwu and Lucky prepare to hunt the boss together, and the Archmage is confident they'll defeat the monster. As the countdown ends, Yanwu also finishes digging a hole using the shovel he bought. Then, when the Goblin Champion appears, it wastes no time and comes at Yanwu. Luckily, Yanwu leaps out of the way, and he manages to lead the boss into his trap. Once the Goblin Champion is inside the hole, Yanwu throws a bottle of oil at it, before setting it on fire with his fireball. Because the Champion Goblin's behavior patterns depend on its remaining health, it would be more difficult for newbies who have only fought field monsters. Even an alt account that has a lot of money won't try to attack it alone. But Yanwu believes that things will be easier if he targets and neutralizes its behavior patterns. Despite being attacked with fire, the Goblin Champion still tries to climb out of the hole, but Lucky is quick to bite its hand. Yeah, not on Lucky's watch. The Champion Goblin's remaining life is just little, yet it still refuses to give up and jumps out of the hole. At that moment, Yanwu knows that its attack pattern is going to change, but Lucky has no intention of letting the boss hurt his master. Lucky takes down the goblin champion like a ragdoll, and Yanwu finishes it off with Fireball. Katon!
Hey man, that ain't Naruto.
Oh, my bad. As a result, Yanwu achieves the title Champion Goblin Hunter. Yanwu celebrates with Lucky, thinking about how nice it would have been if he'd been able to broadcast the fight live. He could bet points with the viewers and get a lot of sponsors. You know, all that good stuff. At the same time, Yanwu obtains other titles like Champion Goblin Solo Hunter and Together with the Divine Beast. Then, the War Dragon gives Yanwu a chance after his great victory, which means he needs to do some card gacha. But suddenly, Lucky notices something. When Yanwu turns around, he sees a bright red light and the Champion Goblin mask floating. Then, after playing the game, Yanwu checks his phone and learns that the mask costs 1.1 million won. That only proves how expensive raid items are, making Yanwu curious if the mask's performance is good. Understandably, Yanwu wants to use the mask himself, but he doesn't have much choice due to his brother's medical bills and their living expenses. Yanwu wishes he had more money, but he gets distracted when his phone rings. The caller is someone from the insurance company who wants to talk about the compensation for Yanwu's electrical accident. Yanwu realizes that the call is the answer to his problems, so he tells the person on the other line that he'll call them back, because he's had trauma and anxiety since the accident, adding that he's having a hard time right now. Later, Yanwu instructs Yukju to add 300,000 won to his account. Yukju is surprised and asks Yanwu if he got some good items, but his friend replies that it's not the case. Yanwu explains that when he received a call from the insurance company, he lied about his condition and stated he felt he'd go crazy from anxiety after the accident. He even mentioned he had symptoms of PTSD, and just like that, Yanwu got a nice insurance payout. As Yanwu prepares to play the game, he thinks about what he did and admits it wasn't right. But because of that, he's managed to secure a month's wage and can now focus on his growth. Yanwu then connects to God Wars, knowing that he can't waste even a second. In the Goblin Forest, Yanwu bombards some goblins with Fireball and gets annoyed when they keep hiding behind their shields. So, he fires an ice arrow at them, which is more of a bullet than an arrow. Also, Yanwu brags that arrow-type magic is best suited against opponents that hide behind a shield. Standing on a tree branch, Yanwu makes sure to kill every single goblin. And of course, Lucky's got his back. Unknown to Yanwu, a goblin is about to throw its axe at him, but Lucky bites the sneaky creature. Thanks to Lucky, Yanwu feels even safer, and the two soon head to the next hunting ground. There, Yanwu checks the rare goblin set he's collected, which holds the grudges of goblins. He now has a lot of basic equipment from goblins, but there are no unique items like the champion's mask, and there's no set effect as well. Yanwu then realizes that unique items are hard to find outside of boss raids, and he can only hope for a unique item to fall from the sky. Somewhere in the forest, a man desperately tries to escape from his pursuer but ends up getting hit by a weapon and killed. Then, the pursuer, whose name turns out to be Chang, is approached by his companions and asks if he has caught the priest. Chang's buddies are surprised that the priest died with one shot, pointing out that monk guys with low health are not fun, and that they can't play around with them like they do with warriors. That's when their captive, another priest, speaks up, threatening to report the savages to the guild. But one of them reveals that it doesn't matter, because they're using alt accounts, and he reminds the priest that he can't call anyone to the forest because of the level restriction. After that, the men start beating up the priest, daring him to log out, but promising they'll see each other again once he reconnects. When Yanwu heard the priest's screams earlier, he decided to investigate but not interfere. Still standing on a tree branch, Yanwu sees the civilian killers, who don't leave the town of beginning even after hitting level 12, and only massacre beginners. These guys find it fun to torture others, so they waste all their time online. Sure, Yanwu thinks it's annoying, but he knows that picking a fight with them at his current level would be a silly thing to do. He then decides to just leave, but Lucky is angry and looks like he wants to maul the man to death. At the moment, Yanwu recalls how he and Lucky defeated the champion goblin, so he wonders if they stand a chance against the civilian killers. Later, the civilian killers look for more newbies to terrorize. Chang just can't wait to attack a player, but he gets hit with a fireball in the face. Shocked, the other two guys demand to see who hurt their friend. So, Yanwu comes out and declares he'll broadcast everything, saying it will be called Hunting Down Civilian Killers. Hello, I'm an Archmage streamer. Yanwu introduces himself, making the men panic. The civilian killers are surprised to come face to face with the streamer, and one of them is so afraid that he covers his face instead of player ID. But what these guys don't know is that Yanwu just lied, for he knows they fear live broadcasts the most. Without warning, Yanwu shoots one civilian killer with an ice arrow, which the other guy notices. The remaining civilian killer is aware that only an archmage can use 2 or more elements, making him realize that the player in front of him is rich and using an alt account. Terrified, the last civilian killer starts running away, only to get bitten by Lucky. When Yanwu approaches him, the guy wants to know if he really is an archmage streamer, but he doesn't even wait for Yanwu to reply, and says he'll remember his ID. Is he trying to scare Yanwu? Unbothered, Yanwu tells the civilian killer to do as he pleases before ending his life. Afterward, Yanwu sees in the system that the opposition's karma score is low. Karma score is granted according to actions in-game, and it decreases if someone repeats wicked acts toward other players or NPCs. Yanwu is happy that he got to teach those guys a lesson, excited that the variety of items he can loot increases. Also, Yanwu used to believe that item looting was all luck, but he can see them now and identify which items are the good ones. When Yanwu finds the champion goblin's leather armor and leather trousers, he immediately knows they're unique items that have a set effect with the champion goblin's mask. Then, without thinking much about it, Yanwu equips the items, and the Goblin Champion set effect activates. His stats increase by 25 points, and all damage against goblins increases by 10%. Curious, Yanwu checks his status window, which shows his impressive stats. He remembers how he barely passed 100 intelligence after hitting level 15 with his last character, and he's sure that others will think it's a glitch if they see his stats. Meanwhile, Lucky suddenly howls, much to Yanwu's shock. As it turns out, Lucky has gained new power from the Pantheon. The system asks Yanwu to select a new ability for Lucky, so the Archmage chooses a golden card, which is a legendary rank, Treasure Hunter. With this legendary rank, Lucky will be able to detect rare hidden treasures. Yanwu wonders if treasures mean items, and that's when he recalls the man known as the luckiest player in God Wars. He was the Guildmaster Lapo, who fought monsters with his divine beast Fenrir, which he named Taltal. Lapo's content was primarily finding hidden dungeons and items, but he was so lucky that some people started doubting whether it was all real or fake. Yanwu's curious if Lapo got his luck from the treasure hunter skill, so he goes deeper into the forest with Lucky to test the puppy's hunting skill. Sure enough, Lucky easily spots expensive rare ingredients. Yanwu can't help but admire his little companion, but he stops in his tracks when Lucky notices a passageway under a tree. As Yanwu checks it, he realizes that it's the secret hideout of the Goblin Spellcaster. A hidden dungeon! Yanwu discovers that there's a secret quest and reward, and he also learns that he's the first player to find the hidden dungeon in the town of Beginning. Selling that information can get Yanwu about a month's worth of living expenses, but the Archmage is unsure if that's what he should do. In the end, Yanwu decides to crack the dungeon open. Yeah, what kind of gamer just always chooses to sell information, right? After a few minutes, Lucky makes his grand entrance into the dungeon and attacks a goblin. It isn't long before Yanwu follows Lucky and takes out a couple of goblins with his fireball, infuriating the level 16 Goblin Spellcaster. Then, Yanwu declares that they'll begin the attack on the hidden dungeon within the town of Beginning, the secret hideout of the Goblin Spellcaster. As Lucky enjoys dealing with the lowly goblins, Yanwu observes the Goblin Spellcaster. He knows that its stamina is low, but it's a boss monster that uses powerful attack magic while its underlings buy time. In other words, it will be easier for Yanwu to hunt it down if he gets the timing right. Soon, Yanwu manages to stab the Goblin Spellcaster in the neck and follows it with a fireball. But even though Yanwu has done significant damage, the Goblin Spellcaster is still alive and refuses to surrender. Now, Yanwu is worried because he still has to figure out what the Goblin Spellcaster will do next. Unfortunately, the Goblin Spellcaster prepares to finish Yanwu off with a powerful attack. But again, Lucky comes to the rescue and bites the Goblin Spellcaster in the leg, interrupting the boss's casting. Lucky has given Yanwu a chance to make his move, so the Archmage throws a fireball at the Goblin Spellcaster once more and finally kills it. The Goblin Spellcaster has been defeated. Time to celebrate. Oh wait, the Goblin Spellcaster is still alive! Yanwu isn't sure how that happened, and to make things worse, the Goblin Spellcaster is even more enraged. I'm back, shouts the Goblin Spellcaster. Now, the War of God shall begin. Yanwu isn't sure what the goblin spellcaster is talking about, but it doesn't stay long to explain and eventually disintegrates. Could it be a bug? Anyway, Yanwu receives several alerts after killing the goblin spellcaster, and he's already filmed all the evidence videos he plans to sell later. Then, he checks what items he got and sees the goblin spellcaster's cane. Since it's a unique grade level 10 usable staff with 31 attack stat, Yanwu is confident that he'll be able to make some money with it. Yanwu is glad he obtained the unique item, but again, he learns that upon pickup, it can't be traded. He can't help but express how pissed he is, but suddenly, the system generates the main scenario. Years ago, scientist Kim Min-soo developed the perfect virtual reality world God Wars. When reporters asked why he created a game with new technologies, he replied that he only wanted to make a story. He added that it all started with his personal interest and didn't intend to make money from it. Sadly, Min-soo suddenly passed away, and people searched God Wars to find what it was he wanted to tell through the game. However, no one was able to find that story over the past 5 years. Now, the story will be unraveled right before Yanwu, and the Archmage just can't believe it. Players have been looking everywhere for that story, so Yanwu is surprised that he found it in the town of Beginning, especially since many people complained and asked if there was an error in the game. But now that he's thinking about it, Yanwu realizes that players didn't go looking in the town of Beginning because the Explorer Guild ruined the place. Someone could have found out about it before Yanwu, but in any case, it's an opportunity for him. This time, Yanwu has no intention of reporting it to the community, and he plans to go through it alone. Lucky seems to agree to Yanwu's decision, and of course, the Archmage thanks his companion for his help. Then, the system informs Yanwu that he hasn't used the opportunity given by the War Dragon yet, so he chooses to pull whatever for now, since the main scenario is more important. But all of a sudden, Yanwu notices a glowing card and picks it, seeing that it's a legendary skill called Polymorph. With it, Yanwu can transform into a creature he's previously hunted. This is an exclusive skill, but Yanwu isn't sure if he should be happy with it or not. When Yanwu returns to the town of Beginning, he checks his quest window and learns he must mention the words, "Traces of the Nameless God," to the NPC Young, in order to continue with the quest. Young is the NPC a player meets after completing the town of Beginning, and his house is like an instance dungeon, where a separate area is created just for the player. Yanwu knows that he doesn't need to be on the lookout for any Explorer Guild guys there, and he soon enters Young's house with Lucky. Inside, Lucky starts barking when he sees Young. Young asks Yanwu if he visited him to leave that town and march into the wider world, but the Archmage confesses that aside from that, he wants to know something. Yanwu asks Young if he knows anything about the traces of the Nameless God, and the big guy answers quickly. According to Young, the Nameless God refers to those who were defeated in the War of Gods and stepped down from the Pantheon, because they can no longer be called gods and have been forgotten by people. After being defeated in the war and before losing their divinity, they left behind their legacy somewhere in that world. Young wants to know if Yanwu is really curious about the traces of the Nameless God, so the Archmage replies that he is. That's when Young removes his ring and admits he's been searching for the traces for a long time, but he couldn't reach the end of the truth.
However, it may be different for you,
says Young as he gives Yanwu his ring. Young instructs Yanwu to find Sahalin in the city of Wagar and give her the ring, stating that the girl will guide him. Young also wishes Yanwu good luck, and the Archmage can't wait for the main scenario to begin. Afterward, Young asks Yanwu if he's ready to leave that town and step forward into the larger world. If Yanwu graduates from the town of Beginning, it means he can no longer return there. Excited, Yanwu replies that he is, and he soon gets transported to the city of Wagar. There's one thing that all players say: God Wars really starts after you leave the town of Beginning. Wasting no time, Yanwu places the precious little Lucky inside his coat, and he searches for Sahalin and ignores those people who notice that he's not even looking around. Some even wonder if he's an experienced player raising an alt account or secondary character. Then, Yanwu thinks about the ring he received from Young, which has additional effects that are on the same level as a legendary. It also has set effects with an item called Sahalin's Ring. Yanwu wonders if he'll keep getting rewards as he progresses through the main scenario, which makes him smile because things just keep going his way. Eventually, Yanwu finds the NPC Sahalin in her house, where the girl asks him how he managed to get inside that place since it's hidden by magic. But instead of answering the question, Yanwu shows Sahalin the ring Young gave him. Because of that, Yanwu completes the quest and prepares to leave to do the next one, only to be stopped by the girl. Sahalin can't believe that Young sent a novice like Yanwu, saying she doesn't talk to brats like him who only caught goblins. Sad to say, Sahalin wants Yanwu to go outside the town and prove himself to her by hunting 10,000 orcs. As a result, a new main scenario quest has been created, leaving Yanwu in disbelief. With no other choice, Yanwu leaves with Lucky to complete the difficult quest, but he knows that it will take too much of his time. Just then, the system informs Yanwu that he must hunt orcs to find a fragment of the nameless god. That makes Yanwu realize that the quest isn't about hunting 10,000 orcs, so he quickly heads to the forest to start the job. Yanwu has already been through so much, both inside and outside the game God Wars. He needs to support his sick brother and niece, and to do that, he must play the famous virtual reality game. Although he stumbled once when he lost his main account and character, he managed to get back up and return to the game even stronger. Now, he even has a puppy companion, a divine beast named Lucky, who is more than happy to help him in completing his quests. Yanwu still has many monsters to defeat and quests to finish, but with his family in his heart and Lucky by his side, Yanwu knows that he can do anything.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.